Okay, we're looking at Laisha's images here. We're looking at the green and magenta image. So her first image is these leaves. She's at ISO 400, 50 millimeters, f11 at 1/100th of a second. All of those settings are looking good. You got nice and close to your subject, so it's all just green. So that was a really smart decision. You simplified the image by just getting closer and filling your image, filling your frame with just these plants. The green is obviously really strong here. The light that you're using is something that could be improved. So making sure that the light is clean light. For example, you can see how it's just the white light over here. But here it looks like there's maybe a reflection off of a red wall or a red building, or something is giving a little bit of a color cast to this side of the image. And then allowing that light to really fill in all of this space. So having it a little bit stronger, or maybe even bringing in a reflector to bounce some of the light back in would work best in this image. But great job on your framing, and you have a good exposure here. It's dark, but it allows the greens to really hold their value. And then you put this image together. You have the green grass and you have this little fake Gerber daisy that you stuck in the middle of it. So you're forcing those colors together, which is great when we're finding them, and it's great when we're creating a scene. So both of these are really acceptable ways to approach this. So this is looking good. You're at ISO 400, 50 millimeters, f11 at 1/80th of a second. So both of those were shot at f11. This image would lend itself to a wider aperture. So instead of f11, opening up your aperture to maybe f3.5 or f2.8, as wide as your lens. Oh, it looks like your lens goes to 1.4. So 1.4 would work really well to just allow us to focus on that flower, and then the background of the green kind of falls away. The light that you're using here is softer light, and you can see how it's illuminating the whole flower. So this light works better to let us see all of the details and have the pop of color compared to what we're seeing here. So hopefully you can tell the difference in those two lights and see how this gives more informational detail to this image. All right, and then just a couple more images, like just a little bit change of the framing, or a little bit of a different exposure. But your exposure here is right on. The light's the best here. And then the framing, I think, is really excellent that you chose. This is Ol1's image. She's at ISO 100, 40 millimeters, f5.6 at 1/30th of a second. So that f5.6 is a good aperture to be using here to allow that second and third plant to fall out of focus, right? We don't need to see all of the details there, but that repetition works well. So your aperture works well. The light that you're using is nice soft light. It might be more pleasing, or it would be more pleasing to photograph this from the front. So we're getting that brighter light instead of being on the shadowed side of this. So whether that means that you're just focusing on one plant, or maybe you take that angle of view and have the repetition moving this way, but you're photographing this plant back here. Really beautiful lighting on your plant. We just want to make sure we're seeing that in the most important part, right? This is the most important part, but that beautiful light that you have is more on the back side of this plant. Nice framing again, nice use of color, simplifying it so we're really just looking at that green. Here you're at ISO 100, 33 millimeters, f5.6 at 1/50th of a second. All those settings look good. And you have this bright magenta in the foreground. So that really stands out to me. And then we do have the green. We have the green of the cactus here, the green of the pot, the green of the line in the background. But it doesn't feel like it's the prominent color. It doesn't feel like the element of design in this is really that green and magenta, because we have the competition with the yellows and the oranges and the yellows and the oranges. So it doesn't stand out as much as that green does in your first image. So this is a much stronger image, especially for the intent of it being color. And then this falls off a little bit where the green doesn't feel as important. What you could do to fix that would be just to get closer, just eliminate this, just allow us to see this green and magenta. Again, the light here, this open shade that you're working with, is really beautiful. I'm just kind of looking to see if any of them are a little bit more simplified. And this is a little bit more simplified, but I think just getting close, just cropping into this one little area would be the strongest. All right, these images are by Kim. She's at ISO 800, 46 millimeters, f11 at 0.4 seconds. So a longer exposure. And she's created this scene. She's put together a glass bottle that's green, a cup that's green, a lime. So really creating this scene. And she needed something in the background to fill that space. And she uses this old classic fan, which is really selling this idea of refreshment, right? So that was a smart decision. The light that you're using is hard light coming in from the side. And you can see that hard shadow back here, probably window light that you're using. And there's no way for you to know this before I'm telling you, but a really fun way to get detail on bottles is when you're photographing them with light to back them, so even back this cup with something white. Just cut something out that's the same shape as this bottle and put it right behind it to reflect that light, and that'll open it up a little bit more. In this image, I'm not sure that we have focus anywhere. Actually, we do have focus on the fan. None of this is in focus. I was kind of going back and forth between if this was camera shake or if this was a focal issue, but it's definitely a focal issue. The focus is back here. It's not on your three most important aspects of this image. And then here, this is just a fun mishmash, and you've kind of gotten good at this layering of different objects in a scene in order to create like the last module you had the fan and there was the layering going on, and I think you're over this course of the semester I'm seeing that more and more, that you're layering these things. And here you have all of these house plants and then this magenta blanket coming through, the magenta back here. So that's working well. Again, the focus is a little bit further back into the frame, so we have to find our way back there. It may work better to have this area that's taking up so much room in the foreground to be where you set your point of focus, and then allow the background to start to fall out of focus. You're at ISO 800, 35 millimeters, f5 at 1/6 of a second. So those settings all look good there. Making sure that you also have light on the foreground here, I think would improve this image. So both of these are strong scenes that you've shot, but a couple of things can be done technically to improve the images. And actually, hopefully this is your contact sheet. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so here you brought the bottle and cup a little closer to the window. And you can see how just because of what's behind it is white here, that gives a nice real pop of color. So that's exactly what you would be getting if you like made a cutout like I was talking about. And it's fun when students are photographing different, they're trying all of the different color combinations. So this is great to see all of those. I think the scene that you're setting up in both of these is really smart. Just getting that focus and the focus is what it was, the focus and light in both of the images. And then this is the last image for green and yellow, or sorry, green and magenta. This is Keith's image. We're at ISO 200, 40 millimeters, f10 at 1/125th of a second. So all of those settings look good. You have this, I have no idea what kind of plant this is, with these kind of purple berries coming down and then they turn into green. So really interesting plant. This seems like it would lend itself more to a vertical image instead of a horizontal image. But the colors are working great. The light is a little bit distracting, right? Where we have really bright areas and the harsh light just falls off into dark areas. So this would be a place where you could use a reflector to bounce some light back into these areas. Or even do something like using a diffuser, something like a stretched out t-shirt or sheet or a sheer curtain that would allow this to be softer light coming across. So we wouldn't have that harshness. That would probably work better for this image. Of course, the other option is to wait till a different time of day where the light's a little bit different. But really interesting subject here with repetition and a good use of the green. And then you got nice and low here for these impatiens, and you have that bright magenta with the green. And this is that softer light that I was talking about that allows us to see and move through the image and follow the subjects opposed to follow the light. Can you see how here we're following all of the flowers, where here we're really following the light? So it's a different approach as to how you're leading us through. And since your subject are these impatiens, I think getting close and allowing the flowers to move us instead of the light would be a better intent. So ISO 200, 48 millimeters, f10 at 1/30th of a second. You're nice and sharp here as we find our point of focus back here. I wish this bee was in focus because it's such a fun aspect, but I think it was just a little too close to your lens to be in total focus. All right, so a lot of different subjects again here. I think you picked the strongest of the images that you have as far as color goes. So here the green's the strongest. Here it's really all about the color. So just pay attention to the light. I think that's the biggest thing that you could do to improve these images. But nice job going out and finding these objects together. I think that can be a more difficult approach. So nice job.